Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Gail Carson. Welcome to Living Regret Free, a program that shows you how to live a better and more joyful life. As an added bonus, I invite you to listen to an introduction to my Mindset Matters program, which ties into this so well. Go to www.sobmindset.com. It's free, and I know you will enjoy it. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at gailcarson13@gmail.com or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter.
What an interesting guest I have for you today by the name of Dr. Frances Yahia. She is a mental health counselor, a Akashic records reader, an astrologer, a podcast host, an author, a college professor, and she earned her PhD in mental health counseling from Barry University, and she studied metaphysics for more than 3 decades, having been born into a cult and finally freeing herself and her children 33 years later. She is concerned that cults and other coercive spiritual groups, techniques, and teachings are on the rise, which we know they are. The therapy model and techniques she uses are based on universal laws and are designed to liberate individuals and restore self-love, self-empowerment, and self-worth. Welcome to the show, Dr. Yahia.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, let's talk about some of these situations. I'm not sure how you are a member of a cult for 33 years, but talk about these universal laws that you teach to amplify business success.
Okay, so there is a wonderful little book you can find for free online called The Kabbalion. And the Kabbalion talks about 7 laws. They're based on Hermetic philosophy of ancient Greece and Egypt. And these laws, in addition to one other law, are how I live my life, how I write my books, how I counsel clients. So these laws include the principle of mentalism, a belief that all is mind, that all is created from the mind. There's another law called the law of rhythm, that everything has a cycle or a rhythm like the seasons or the planets. There's another law called the law of vibration, which is everything has a vibrational frequency that we vibrate at, and we connect to others at that vibrational frequency. And we can use these laws all for business success. So let me start with the law of rhythm, which is one that I use with clients when they're discussing their businesses with me. Every story has an origin point or an origin story. So when you think about starting a business, when you think about writing a business plan, when you are in your basement thinking about the concept for your business, that's your origin story. That would be at the beginning of the law of rhythm. That origin story or personal myth of the business will be woven throughout the entire livelihood of the business, whether it's 9 years, 25 years, 45 years, an eternity. And we can follow these cycles or these rhythms using this law of rhythm. At the first year, it's sort of like the conception year, and every business has a conception story, just like when I deal with personal clients in families or relationships, the relationship or the birth story of a person, the conception story, is what we call year 1. Year 2 is like a harmony or relationship year, and this is sort of when we're starting to build the team who's going to help us in our venture. Year 3 is what's known as a thought year, where we're starting to think about perhaps more detail about the company. Those are pretty sort of standard when you write a business plan, when you're starting to put the name together, your team, your location, your mission, your vision. Year 4 is the biggie. Year 4 is a crisis year or a construction year. Every business, year 4, will undergo some sort of crisis or construction linked to the origin story or year 1 of when it was first sort of thought into existence. Year 5 of a business is a growth year and will always provide fruit. Year 6 is a service year or a purification year. So maybe you do a little downsize, you do a little rebranding. Year 7 is an internal year where it's almost like a spiritual crisis that the business undergoes, where you kind of reevaluate your mission, your vision. Year 8 is a prosperity year where there's a lot of wealth and growth in the business. And year 9 is a endings year where you have to kind of revisit once again your mission from year 1, slim it down or grow, let go of certain things and start new, maybe with new team members and so forth. And every business follows this cycle.
Well, maybe that's one of the reasons why most businesses fail after 1 or 2 years, because they're not going through all of these different cycles, you know. But I'm curious, and I have to tell you, probably my audience is too, how do you go from cult to a consciousness coach?
Okay, great question. So I was born into the cult, actually. So let me just give you a little bit of my background. My parents are Cuban, and it's very typical in the Cuban culture to be born or at least exposed to what we call Afro-Cuban religions. And my parents were from Cuba, and they moved to South Florida, and they were part of this Afro-Cuban culture, which is actually all rooted in mythology. When it first started out, it was actually really great and great spiritual laws and so forth. So my actual upbringing for the first few years were actually really rooted in a solid spiritual foundation. My parents were the financial arm of the spiritual community. And one thing that we see throughout spirituality is that spirit and matter are always together. So, for instance, Jesus, we see the spirit, we see the man, the matter, and the spirit. This is a theme rooted in all traditions, religions, philosophies. So I actually was exposed to that very early on and never struggled with the concept. Now, years later, as many teachers or gurus do, the power gets to them, the ego, the narcissism, and it goes awry. So at that point, that's when I started to get ready to leave. I was forced into an arranged marriage with one of the cult members, had 3 children, and at that point when my children were babies, I had to leave. So I, of course, was sort of looking for another teacher or another religion or some sort of spiritual philosophy to fill the gaping hole. I found astrology. Astrology is a wonderful discovery process, self-discovery process, a study of the archetypes of the mind and of consciousness. I also found Akashic records, shamanism, so I was definitely on a search. And one day I went for a reading, and I get out of the reading, and my husband at the time says, "How was it?" I said, "Well, it was the worst reading I ever had and the best reading I ever had." The worst was because it wasn't good at all, didn't offer any information. But the best was I realized that what I had, my intuition, my teaching, my understanding of spirituality was really solid. And from there, I developed a very strong spiritual practice internally, but also with clients, and have been building that for about 15 years since. So consciousness is the name of the game. And what happens is we are born into a low-level consciousness, all of us, in our family structure. It does not matter what the story is. The point is that your soul, when it incarnates, is given a vibration level. Again, one of the laws in the Kabbalion law of vibration. So you choose your parents based on the vibration that you resonate at, and that is linked to your karma from previous lifetimes and the karma that you come to work through in this lifetime. So you're given your quality of thoughts at the moment of conception. So just like the business has a conception, the baby has a conception. You're given your emotions, you're given your desires, and you're given your level of consciousness. Your entire job from the spirit realm in this lifetime is to raise your consciousness level from that low-level consciousness at conception all the way through to your death. So it's the same cycle of a business the child, teenager, adult, what I call spiritual adult, goes through. It's all to raise consciousness. And in order to do that, you have to have what I call a spiritual TED Talk with yourself every day, which is your thoughts, your emotions, and your desires. Those are the things that keep us in low-level consciousness. They were gifted to us based on our past karmas and our parents' vibration. And what we come to do is to raise that consciousness level by purifying our thoughts, emotions, and desires, learning to love ourselves, have self-worth, and then go into the world as a world server to serve humanity.
Well, I would think that's a conversation that many people don't have with themselves, because one of the things that I know you talk about also is the subconscious, and most people are really not aware of their subconscious thoughts. So how do you start reprogramming your subconscious? I mean, people are so not aware of this at all.
Great question. And this is actually what I dedicate myself to. And you cannot raise your consciousness level from a conscious mind. So when people talk about vision boards or affirmations, that's all from a conscious perspective, from a conscious mind. Everything is in the subconscious. So I've developed a 4-stage model of how the subconscious develops. And from there, then we can lead into the spiritual TED Talk and into raising our vibration or our consciousness level. The first stage of the subconscious development is at the moment of conception. So when your parents are conceiving you, they actually have their own set of thoughts. I call these the impure thoughts. So let's say mom's, frustrated and she has to go to make dinner. Dad is feeling really upset because he lost a deal that day. Whatever's happening energetically in your parents' mind, in their thoughts, when you're conceived, becomes your subconscious mind that you will fight and try to hide your entire lifetime until you bring it to the conscious forefront. So the moment of conception has all of the subconscious programming. There are 3 additional layers. When you're in the womb, the 9 months of pregnancy, you actually get what I call your shadow love language. This is where you think you're getting your needs met. You think you're in a symbiosis with mom, but you're not. It's actually a very parasitic relationship. Mom is living externally a life, and she has emotions linked to that life. So let me give you an example. Mom works until the last day of pregnancy. Her water breaks. The child learns a shadow language of love, which is hard work pays off. Hard work is how I'm going to get love. Hard work is how I'm going to get my needs met. And now that baby, as he or she develops through life, tries to get his needs met through, in this example, hard work or whatever language your mom gave you. And it was through her experiences, her thoughts, her emotions, and her own desires that you developed this shadow love language. The reality is that we've been told 2 very big lies. The first is that our parents love us unconditionally. Our parents have not and will never love us unconditionally, as I cannot love my children unconditionally and you yours, etc. The other lie we were told is that our parents meet our needs. Our parents do not meet our needs. Children meet their parents' needs. And we learn these 2 things during pregnancy. So when we come out of the womb, we are not loved unconditionally and we feel less than, and we're not having our needs met. And we assume that if we learn how to sort of read our mother's mind, dad too, but mainly mom, that we will get our needs met. And so we develop a parasitic relationship with our parents and with everybody else in life, all secrecy, trying to get our needs met instead of learning that we should ask for what we need. This is what a spiritual adult does. The 3rd level of the subconscious development is actually the birthing process. Your transition out of the womb into the world speaks to how you transition in the world. And there's 3 major transitions: birth, sexual experience, and then final death. And you've got little transitions throughout your life that are preparing you for the final transition out of the body. And if you don't learn to transition differently than your birth story, then you're going to have a difficult time transitioning out of the body upon your final death. And then the last stage of the subconscious is now you're alive, you're born, you're living it, is what I call your personal mythology. This is where you get your story, your costumes, your characters, and this story keeps you in victim. This story makes you feel as if you're less than, you weren't loved fully, your needs weren't met, you're not worthy of. And now you carry this story and this entire sort of personal mythology with you throughout life. So if you don't know how to break down thoughts, emotions, desires that are from moment of conception and pregnancy, understand your birth story, and then your 0 to 7, your personal mythology, you're kind of living, you think you're living consciously in free will, but you're not. Your subconscious is directing absolutely everything.
Well, this all sounds very complicated to me. I have to tell you, Dr. Yahia. I mean, it really, I'm not sure I'm following all of it. I'm trying, but I'm not sure I'm following all of it. But a question that I have for you is, what kind of person, or who are the kinds of people who come to you for coaching? I mean, how do they find you, and is there any kind of commonality there with the people that you coach or deal with?
So first, let me address the comment about difficult. It sounds very difficult because this is the theory. But in practice, when I strip it down to what I call a psychological x-ray, with 3 questions, I can get your whole story. So it's actually quite simple as a practitioner when I'm working with a client. So this is sort of theory, my theory. If you read my books, if you watch my videos, you'll hear that sort of stuff. But in practice, with just a few questions, I can draw up what I call your psychological x-ray, put your psyche on a piece of paper, your subconscious, and you'll understand it. It's like a light bulb goes off. Now, in terms of who comes to me, anybody that has any sort of pain, mental, physical, spiritual, financial, it doesn't matter. Pain is pain. Universal laws dictate all of it. And if you understand that everything has a cycle, so whether it's your business or your money or your relationship or your individual or your family, and I have models and free workbooks on my website for whatever sort of problem, so to speak, you're dealing with. If it's with your individual self, it's with your couple, if it's your family, your kids, or your business, I've got all the tools online for free. My website is dryahia.com. That's DRYAHIA.com. All the workbooks are for free because all of these models are workable, very simple instructions on how to see how your subconscious is running your life and how to make it aware. I give you very precise homework, very precise questions about everything so that you can kind of follow along. So it's complicated in theory, but really in practice it's quite simple.
Now it's
about doing the work.
You wrote, The 7 Gates, 7 Steps Beyond Self-Awareness. Is that something that people can get and then be able to follow on their own, or would they need you as a guide to help them through it?
No, absolutely. The 7 Gates is a book. It's my individual model. Truth is in the Triangle is a relationship model. The Dethroning Olympus is the family model. And the Wisdom of the Psyche is sort of like the universal model. So again, it doesn't matter what problem, all the models are built on the same steps. The website has a free workbook. The book itself is on Amazon and does have the workbook, but I do post the workbook for free online. On my YouTube channel, which I have hundreds of hours of all of these teachings, there's actually what I call a mother, father, child triad folder that has 6 videos to walk you through all of the steps so that you could do the work on your own. As you mentioned in the introduction, my mission is to get people away from the coercion of gurus and spiritual teachers that are on the rise, that are actually frauds, or what I call sticky note spirituality, this idea that spiritual work is pendulums and crystals, which is nonsense. This is a life journey, just like your material world is, raising your children or your family, building your business. Your spirit needs just as much as attention. So that's what I'm proposing, is these tools, these videos, all free for everybody so that they can become the teacher that they've been waiting for. Yes, it's true, sometimes we need a teacher along the path to teach us and guide us, and I do provide that obviously in my services of classes and sessions with clients. but all of this is designed so that you could do it yourself.
You know, it's so interesting you brought up the idea of a lot of people who are frauds. I can't tell you, because in this industry I get a lot of people who pitch me on different things, how many people consider themselves healers. Now, I don't know if that's something that is natural, or if that's something that can be self-taught, or if that's something that can be studied. But I have a lot of people who say, well, I am a healer, or, I deal with the spirits. How do you know whether someone is genuine or not?
So that's a great question, and there's several parts to that. First of all, most people that call themselves healers would consider themselves wounded healers. So if your healer is wounded, I say run. That means you haven't done your own inner work. We all have a wound. Everybody has a wound from the moment of conception and in pure thought, a low-level consciousness. But if you're calling yourself, as most of these people do, wounded healers, and you think you actually heal someone else, you need to run. That is a fraud. Nobody heals anybody. I heal myself, my kitchen table, alone. It's an inner process. Does my system and does my family, does my relationship change as a result? Absolutely, because it's all vibration. And like I said earlier, the principle of mentalism. When my mind changes and I heal my belief system, then my life changes. But nobody heals another individual. Next, you mentioned being self-taught. Every single person has intuition. They're called the clairs, clairvoyant, claircognizant, clairaudience, clairgusticence. We all have this natural capacity. It's part of being a soul and a spirit in a human body. Some people have it more developed than others. It's something that I teach. You can absolutely develop these clairs so you learn to listen to your thoughts and your intuition more clearly. There's a very big difference between perhaps psychic or intuition and living your life as an intuitive in the sense that you're applying the messages that you're getting. If you think you're getting messages for another person and they're not applicable to yourself, you are sadly mistaken. And that's like psychic work. So there's a low-level everything. And I deal with people all the time that come to develop their psychic or intuitive abilities. And I always say your intuition is only as clear as the quality of your thoughts. So if we don't study our thoughts, the impure thoughts, our low-level consciousness, our intuition or our psychic abilities are going to be very weak. And it goes back to, I got a message for a client. Well, did you apply it to yourself? Do you really think the universe gives you a message to heal someone else, that you don't need that message in turn for your own life? So that's the first thing I teach, is whatever message you give is the message you got for yourself.
Interesting. Well, we just have a couple minutes left, Dr. Yahia. How would people get in touch with you? Is there anything that you would like to tell people that we haven't talked about?
Sure. So there's a few ways to get in touch with me. The best way is my website, which is dryahia.com, DRYAHIA.com. There's, like I said, a bunch of free workbooks under the workbooks tab. That's also linked to my YouTube channel, hundreds of hours. I teach at a university. I run my own college of metaphysics. If you're interested in classes, astrology, Akashic records, consciousness coaching, or just a session, you can get with me through those means. If you're just starting out and you're kind of perplexed with the conversation or you don't even know where to begin, I have this wonderful spiritual starter kit on Patreon for $10 a month, and I give you what I call the 12 truths. There are 12 truths to every religion, philosophy, tradition. They're all the same. So what I have done is I have stripped all of the religions and traditions and philosophies, East and West, to the basic 12 truths. No matter what you believe in, no matter what you follow, no matter what your philosophy or religious belief in, they fall in. But most of us need sort of gaps to be filled in. So this 12 truths, you get a monthly video and access to me directly to talk about. And I also give very specific homeworks. One of the things I've identified through a lot of religions and traditions and philosophies is there are commonalities like right action or right thought, but no one really knows what that is. So I have gone and defined it. I have given you a clear homework assignment for you to do so that you know what that means specifically for you. So I also want to state that spirituality isn't something that's one day, one and done. This is full-time job in the sense just like your material world is. We have two states of consciousness, earthly consciousness and spiritual consciousness, and there is time dedicated to your inner life, to your spiritual life. And I have all the tools for people who want to embark on that journey. We're all sort of guided spiritually in this life, just like we have biological growth and aging, we also have spiritual growth and aging. You get to decide on the spiritual front how much you want to grow spiritually. By virtue of just being human.
I'm going to have to stop you there, Doctor, because we are out of time. But I want to thank you for such a wonderful, wonderful interview today. And hopefully a lot of people will be in touch with you and also be able to get a hold of your book. Thank you so much for being with us today. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. I choose my guests carefully, so if you have someone you'd like me to interview, please drop me a line at gailcarson13@gmail.com. In the meantime, check out my intro program, Mindset Matters, at www.sobmindset.com. See you next week.